Hi, welcome to this online course on clinical trials monitoring. You might be interested in starting your career as a clinical research associate, or you might already be a CRA and would like to solidify your knowledge, fill in those gaps with tips and tricks that will allow you to confidently go through monitoring visits. Now, whichever of these options is the reason why you're here, this is the right introductory course for you. I'm Maria Milas. I am currently a clinical subject matter expert and a former CRA. I'm also the founder of CRA Connect, the hub where CRAs can find useful resources such as articles, blogs, videos, and especially more online resources for CRA. In this introductory course, we will speak about, of course, the clinical research associate role, how you can become one if you're interested, the specific responsibilities a CRA has, but we will also go through each type of monitoring visits a CRA performs. Now, pay attention when we get there. There's a special tip for each of the monitoring visits. And we will also get into concepts such as clinical trial documentation, investigator meetings, and training. So let's get right into it. So what is the CRA? A clinical research associate, also known as a monitor, is the link between the sponsor, so the institution or pharmaceutical company who funds the clinical trial, and the clinical sites, who can be hospitals where the clinical research is being conducted. Now, as the representative of the sponsor for the sites, the CRA will ensure that the clinical trial is running smoothly within the pre-established deadlines, but most importantly, that the clinical trial is running according to the regulation, to ethics committee, and according to the clinical trial protocol. So I like to think of the CRA as sort of an auditor for the clinical trial operations, but a hands-on one, meaning the one who will support the sites in all they need to perform according to what is expected of them. As you will see in this course, the tasks a CRA does and is responsible for are plenty. But if I was to summarize in one sentence what the CRA does, I would say a CRA is a clinical research professional who makes sure that any action taken in the context of a clinical trial is according to protocol, to regulations, with one simple goal: ensuring the safety and well-being of the patients participating in it. Now, how do you get to be a CRA and who can be a CRA? Anyone with a minimum of a bachelor degree education can be a CRA. It is true, though, that some companies might look for CRAs who have a scientific background, which will make the entry point in the industry somewhat easier. However, it is not needed, and if you are coming from a different field, like just myself, you can compensate that in two different ways. One, you can certify yourself as a CRA. What does that mean? Well, take courses that will equip you and expose you to the knowledge you need to be a CRA, such as the upcoming course we have on CRA Connect on monitoring fundamentals for clinical research associate. But there's many courses out there, from short courses to full-year master's degree that will certify you as a CRA. And if you're wondering now at this point if you need a master's degree to be a CRA, the short answer is no. But if you want to know more details on why not, or why I don't believe you need that, there is a blog on CRA Connect giving you more details on why I don't believe you need a master's degree to be a CRA. There's a second option to start as a CRA, which is begin your career in clinical research with a supporting role, such as a clinical trial assistant or an in-house CRA role. And these roles are great to get you started because you will be supporting CRAs and you will be exposed to concepts and clinical trial documentation, and you will slowly get introduced to the role. And that's exactly what I did. I started as a CTA, so clinical trial assistant, for a year, during which I gathered knowledge, experience, and I certified myself as a CRA. And I can tell you that year served me very well once I was a CRA. And what does a CRA do? I like to think of the CRA's responsibility as two main buckets. One, there's the monitoring activity, and two, there's the site management activity. But the first one, monitoring, being the core of the CRA role. So let's start with what is monitoring. Monitoring is the ongoing oversight to make sure that what is, well, on one hand, what is being performed in a trial and to the patients participating in this trial is according to regulation and GCPs, and on the other hand, that what is being reported is precise, exact, and in strict accordance with the clinical trial product. In short, CRAs will check that what is being done in a clinical trial is correct and it's being reported by the sites in the ECRF as an exact match to the source, being this the patient's medical records or the original records of any kind. Now, CRAs conduct regular visits to the clinical research sites where the clinical trial is being conducted. And depending on which stage the clinical trial is in, it could be initiation, maintenance, follow-up, or closure. The monitoring visits you will perform as a CRA are also different and they will have different tasks. And there's, of course, a variety of types of monitoring. There's centralized monitoring, there's remote, there's on-site, there's SDV, SDR, risk-based monitoring, etc. But this is more a subject we will go in depth in our Monitoring Fundamentals for CRAs course. Okay, we know now what monitoring is, but where do you monitor? How do you monitor? Well, you monitor in an CRF. And what is a CRF? A case report form is used to collect the data from patients participating in a trial, for example, demographics, data, lab results, visit date, concomitant medication, adverse event, all patient data that the trial protocol requires. However, keep in mind, these data must be anonymized. You can't have any patient identifying data such as name, surname, social security number, phone numbers in the ECRF. Now, traditionally, we had paper CRFs that when the study was completed were boxed and were shipped to the sponsor to be transcribed in a database or stored forever. But thanks to digital innovation, we use an electronic CRF. And believe me, as a CRA, this has made your life much, much easier. And what happens with this data? Well, throughout the trial, the data is monitored by different parties for different reasons. You will have the sponsor who will constantly access and review this data to ensure patient safety or to check treatment behavior. And the data managers will also ensure that the data is recorded in a specific format. And the CRAs will also review the data to make sure that it's correct and a faithful, exact copy of the source data. And why is it so important? Well, because this data is used at the end of the trial to analyze the efficacy and efficiency of the experimental medication. And the results will be reported in a case study report. And based on this, the medication will be approved or not to go to the next stage or even to the market. Now you might wonder, how many trials does the CRA monitor? It might be a vague answer, but the only answer I can give you is depends. On what? Well, your workload capacity will depend on what is the monitoring visit frequency for the trials that you're currently monitoring, the number of sites that the trials you have are participating, and how many patients are enrolled in each of these sites. If you have been assigned maybe to an observational trial with a very low frequency of monitoring visits, maybe every 6 months, there's few sites, there's few patients, you will have room to manage more clinical trials. In my experience, I've had periods where I was only monitoring one single trial at a time, and it was a big phase 3 oncology trial with a monitoring visit frequency of every 2 weeks, 7 participating sites, and dozens of patients. But at a different point, I was monitoring 7 different clinical trials, all from the same sponsor, same but slightly different therapeutical indications. So yes, it really depends. But let's get back on track and let's have a look at what monitoring visit types you could find yourself performing. Let's start speaking about the site selection visit or site qualification visit. This initial exploratory visit to a site is meant to assess if a site has the equipment, personnel, or capacity to participate in a clinical trial. Meaning, Are there enough investigators? Are the investigators properly qualified? What's the number of patients the PI thinks will be recruited? Where would be the treatment in research stored? Is there a dedicated space for the CRA to monitor? Where will the ISF be stored for 25 years? Sometimes the sponsor might choose to join you, the CRA, in these site qualifications visits, and this might be the only opportunity you have to meet the study manager sitting at the sponsor in person. So I highly recommend that you try to build a good relationship in these visits because it will be crucial down the road. And here's a tip. Even though so many times the site will complain about the sponsor, about insufficient budget, about their demands and expectations, and on the other side, the sponsor might also complain about the sites being unresponsive or slow or underperforming. Remember, it is not a sponsor versus site game here. We're all on the same team with one single goal, the success of a clinical trial that will bring new treatment options to the market and ultimately save lives. After the site qualification visit might come the site initiation visit. So when you hear, oh, the SIV, yes, the SIV. But don't let this scare you. It's actually great fun. It's the day where you're going to meet more people, at least together, than any other monitoring visit. It's stressful, for sure, but it's also great fun. Now, once all the equipment and the IMP, meaning the investigational medicinal products, so the treatment in research, are at the site and there's green light from the sponsor, it's time to initiate. Finally, so let's get it. At the SIV, the CRA will gather in a room all the site staff participating in that trial and train the site, basically on what? On everything. You will review together the protocol, the inclusion-exclusion criteria, the assessments that will be done at every patient visit. You will review if there's any technology vendor in the trial. You will make sure that the pharmacy has the drug, the treatment in research. They have the investigator site file, so the ISF has arrived. Now, another important aspect of the SIV is gathering documentations, signed documents, signed CVs, training logs, delegation of authority log, protocol signatures, investigator brochure signature, etc. And here's my SIV tip. You can probably see already that the SIVs can take long hours, but most likely you will not have the investigators at your disposal for long hours. And my precious tip is that have 2 versions of the SIV on standby. And what do I mean by that? Well, have a PowerPoint with the full training in case the ideal case scenario occurs and you have the site staff in the room for 3 to 4 hours. But also have a plan B, which is have a 10 minutes express SIV presentation. I like to call it the elevator pitch, in case the PI only pops in the room for 10 minutes. And it's more common than you think. Okay, we've done the SIV. What's next? Interim monitoring visits. So we already have patients participating in the trial, and you perform these routine monitoring visits. And this is your standard type of visit, let's say, the one that you will do the most. Each trial you will monitor will have a monitoring plan that will tell you what is the frequency of the monitoring visit that your trial requires. It could be a frequency between once a week, or every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, or even every 6 months, and in between maybe just remote monitoring visit. But when it comes to monitoring visits, your monitoring plan is your main guide. It will tell you what you need to do at every single visit. Maybe you need to see the PI every visit, or maybe every 2 visits. And the same goes for visiting the pharmacy or to do a full review of the investigator's site. Nevertheless, there are certain specific activities that will be the core of every single one of your monitoring visits. Examples. Collect any missing documents or signatures from the site staff. There's always a few documents missing signatures. Monitor any new data that has been generated since your last monitoring visits. Maybe there's open queries. You have to resolve them or respond them and close them. If there's any patients that have been enrolled since your previous visit, confirm the eligibility. And if there's any discrepancies, protocol deviations, or even serious breaches that you find, report them immediately. Here's my monitoring visit, like the interim monitoring visit routine tip. Have a good tool, a tool that you love to take your notes. It can be an app like OneNote or Craft. But the more descriptive that you are in your notes, the less work you will have to do remembering details and adding them to your monitoring visit report. If you take good notes, you can basically copy, paste them into your report, and it saves you great time. The next one is our last type of monitoring visit, the closeout visit. The closeout visit is the last monitoring visit that occurs when you perform a clinical trial. By the time that this visit occurs, the patient must have finalized any procedure or follow-up assessment, and any responsibility the site has towards the sponsor, and the trial must be completed. The CRA needs to make sure that 1, the ISF is complete. So the site file, the documents are complete. There's no documents pending filing or pending signature, that the drug, the treatment in research, the IP has been returned or destroyed according to what the protocol says. And most importantly, that there's no data pending to be monitored in the CRF and there is no queries open at this point. Here's my closeout visit tip. Do not schedule a closeout visit if the principal investigator doesn't ensure you that he or she will be present at the visit. Why? Because this is the last monitoring visit you will perform. It's probably your last chance to get the PI signature of any of your documents. If you don't get it now, you might have to chase for that signature for weeks. Performing the monitoring visit, monitoring and making sure that you spot any discrepancies, protocol deviations, or serious breaches is absolutely crucial, but so it is reporting them. And this takes us to the monitoring visit package. For each visit that you perform, you will create, write, and share 3 documents. The confirmation letter, that's the document in which you will inform your site, so your PI and your study coordinator, of when your upcoming monitoring visit is. The type of visit, so is it going to be an on-site visit? Is it going to be a remote visit? What you will do, which patients you will monitor, which documents you want to check, which signatures you're missing, and what you can expect of your site to prepare. The confirmation letter is a template personalized for each trial that you will have to adapt to each of your sites. Usually, the confirmation letter is shared with the site within 5 days prior to the monitoring visit. And once it's been shared, it's filed in the ETMF and it's also printed so that you can take it with you on your monitoring visit day and file it in the ISF. The second document in the package is the monitoring visit report, of course. This report is an exhaustive document that reports every single task you've performed at a specific visit. Who was attending the monitoring visit? What was discussed? What was monitored? What decisions were made? What did you spot? Were there any discrepancies, any deviation? What are the action items for both you as a CRA and your site after the monitoring visit? And this report will be reviewed and approved by your study manager and will also be shared with your sponsor and then filed in the ETMF. The study monitoring report usually does not go into the site file, as it is a document that you exhaustively report on everything you've seen and done. Now, with this document, expect a lot of back and forth. Once you submit it, your study manager might request more details, or your sponsor might say, but what about this other matter that you didn't report on? And this communication is usually done through reviews of this report, so through comments, or through, can you please get back to me with another version of this draft, or version 2, version 3, version 4, until the document is approved. There's a third and last document, which is the follow-up letter. And this document is sent to site after the monitoring visit report has been approved. And through this document, you inform the site, so mainly the principal investigator and the study coordinator, of the action items after this visit. If there were any protocol deviations you found, what is the severity that it's been assigned to them, and when will be the next monitoring visit. And here comes my little tip when it comes to follow-up letters. Try to agree on when the next monitoring visit will happen on your on-site monitoring visit day in person, so that afterwards, when you're writing your follow-up letter, you don't need to chase the PI or the study coordinator offline for when the date of your next monitoring visit will be. Now, we've talked about tasks, responsibilities, monitoring being the core of it. Let's pick a part of site management activities, which is documentation. Clinical trial documentation has one rule for the CRAs. If something is not documented, it did not happen. But how do you document and what do you document? In a clinical trial, there are standard documents, regulatory required documents that you will need to ensure that they're both filed in eTMF, so the electronic trial master file that stores all the essential documents, and in the ISF, the investigator site file. The same documents that are filed in the eTMF will be physically stored at the site together with the patient's records. Remember, anonymized. Examples of these essential documents are protocol amendments, investigator brochures, the signature pages for both these documents, the patient's informed consent form, the delegation of authority logs, the training records, lab rages, calibration certificates, GCP certificates, CVs, etc. There are plenty. But don't worry, the index of the ISF, so of the investigator site file, will tell you what documents need to be filed and in which section of the ISF need to be filed. So when it comes to documenting other information, what is that information and document how? Well, there will be many decisions made, maybe via email between the sponsor and the investigator, or maybe on a phone call. Communications that you as a CRA should be aware of by being in CC in these emails or by being informed that these conversations have happened. There is no guidance for what is relevant to document in this case and what is not. However, the overall rule remains the same for us all. Any decision that you might consider relevant or that affects the patient in any way or might be slightly different from standard practice, document it. You will never document too much, but you might be sorry that you didn't document enough in case there is an audit finding. One last element that I consider of vital relevance is the investigator meetings, also known as IMs. Now, when a trial kicks off, the sponsor will hold a gathering, usually in person, with all the investigators, study coordinators, CRAs, study managers, medical monitors, where you will have the chance to not only meet your sites and establish a relationship, but also be trained in every single aspect of your trial, from disease-specific trainings to protocol, eligibility, safety, investigational product, vendors, a refresh of the ICH GCP, all of it at once. It might seem intense, and it is. It is hours after hours of PowerPoint after PowerPoint, but my tip here for IMs is try to absorb as much as possible, especially for those investigators who will not attend the IM. You as the CRA will be the one in charge to deliver these trainings to. I hope that sharing these essential elements of the responsibility of the CRA role has been relevant to you. I hope you can apply these tips I've shared from my own experience as a CRA. And if you'd like to learn more, be a more expert CRA and have more knowledge that you can apply to your day-to-day, we have a special course, as I mentioned at the beginning, in Monitoring Fundamentals for Clinical Research Associates that provides a deep dive into, the fundamentals. Every single aspect of clinical trial monitoring, from history of clinical research to the regulation of clinical research, even more practical aspects such as salary expectation and career paths. If that sounds great, and I know and I hope it does, you can drop me an email or register for the course on our CRA Connect company website. And I hope to see you soon. Bye.